Hey, finance folk! Welcome to the EU Finance Podcast. I am Aidas Palubinskas, your host, and today we're going to talk about international finance. Finance is international, and by international, I mean Europe's financial markets interact with the financial markets all over the world. The USA, Britain, G20, etc., etc. So today we're going to go outside of our internal market and see the world through the eyes of Maria Raffaella Assetta, the head of international affairs in DG FISMA, what I like to call the EU Commission's Ministry of Finance. Raffaella and her team are responsible for the EU working with our international partners to develop consistent policies on the regulation of financial markets and capital movements. I've always been a big fan of all things international, so let's cross the border into the big, wide world of international finance. Raffaella, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Aidas. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's jump right into it. What is the role, the missions, and the main tasks of the International Affairs Unit at FISMA, which you lead?
So basically, our main role is to develop, coordinate, and implement the international strategy of DG FISMA, which means basically how we interact with our third country partners, and with this all over the world and in all sectors of the financial markets. So that's why we do this in close cooperation with our expert in DG FISMA, and we try to cover as much as possible because, as you said, financial markets are global, so we need a strategy to deal with risk that can arise from other jurisdictions, to try to achieve a level playing field where our companies can operate globally, and also we should try to promote our European values. Mm-hmm. So what do we do in practice? Our task, I can summarize in four main categories. Multilateral cooperation first. So we coordinate DG FISMA input to the work of the international standard setting bodies. There are many in different areas. Experts participate in different ones. We coordinate the work in the Financial Stability Board. Very important to preserve global financial stability. Second, bilateral cooperation. We run bilateral dialogues with our main partner jurisdiction, meaning the jurisdiction which are more active in the global financial markets, and this goes from the US to the UK, from China to Japan, from Canada to Asian jurisdictions. Third, we develop our internal FISMA policy with regards to the relation with third countries, and this implies also the coordination of the equivalence policy, which is a policy the US to recognize that the frameworks of other countries are equivalent to the EU one.
You mean in the sense that we recognize that their rules and our rules are pretty much equal so that we can play on the same field?
Exactly. Okay. They are similar. Mm-hmm. So when we recognize that these frameworks are equivalent, there is a facilitation of global trade to the benefits of our companies which operate abroad. Last but not least, our task is to input the work of other commission services, so to provide FISMA input to other commission work streams, importantly the enlargement and the trade negotiation. So we contribute to assess candidate enlargement countries' alignment with EU legislation in the area of financial services and help them getting ready to access the single market. And on the trade negotiations, we work with trade when it negotiates free trade agreements, and we look at the financial services chapter of this.
Understood. I want to come back a little bit, and this might sound like a gotcha question because it's about the United States and about the incoming President Trump. You mentioned that we work also bilaterally with our international partners. Obviously, the United States, a very important partner for the EU. A lot of people obviously are I'm maybe a little bit worried about what's going to happen on January 20th when Trump becomes the president of the United States again. How is your unit preparing for that?
Listen, with the United States, we have a very good well-established dialogue at technical level. And we expect that this will continue without problem with the new administration. This was the case under the first Trump administration. So in a way, we prepare by continuing reaching out at technical level and keep the dialogue open.
Sounds good to me. Okay, what is the key objective regarding our participation at the international level, and whose voice are we representing?
Well, as I mentioned, given that the global nature of financial markets, the first key objective is to identify potential risk for financial stability and to mitigate them. So, because, the financial crisis, for those who remember it, showed if something wrong happens somewhere in the world, in the financial markets, this has repercussions in the EU as well.
The old adage that if the United States sneezes, Europe catches a cold, or the other way around.
Voilà. And so this is one of the main objectives. We work to assess risk for global financial stability and how to mitigate them. We work on the international stage also to level the playing field, because companies, our financial institution operating abroad, have interest to have the same rules or similar rules applied around the globe to compete fairly. Third, we promote our values, sustainable finance, on digital finance. The EU has been front runner, and we are proud to promote our approach internationally.
Well, sustainable finance, definitely, I can vouch for that, because in this podcast we've done a number of episodes about sustainable finance, and yeah, indeed, Europe is definitely at the forefront of sustainable finance. Sometimes the Commission isn't the only organization representing the EU during these discussions. I mean, I guess in certain fora, it's the EU plus certain member states are in those fora. How do we cooperate with the member states, the supervisory agencies that you mentioned earlier, and national supervisors? Is this a free-for-all? Is it a coliseum? Are we the lions or are we the victims?
Well, the international arena is complicated for the EU because we have a complicated structure. And I mean, our international partner not always understand that there is the EU, then there are member states, then there are the European supervisory authorities and agencies, and all play a role. Now, what we strive to do is to coordinate our position as much as possible. And for instance, we coordinate with the member states which sit in the Financial Stability Board or other international organizations to speak as much as possible with one voice. On our bilateral dialogues, we involve the European supervisory authorities, the European Central Bank, the Single Supervisory Board. So we try to keep them on board. And to your question, I don't think we are lions nor victims. We all have our role to play in the global arena.
That sounds good. Good that we're talking or managing to talk with one voice most of the time. How do we shape? I mean, we're strong. The EU is a massive financial market. So I'm sure that we have quite a bit of influence. How do we shape the global discussion at the international level?
Two things are essential. First, to have clear in mind what are our objectives. As I mentioned, our objectives are to preserve financial stability, the integrity of financial market, investor protection, etc. So once we have this objective, key is proactive engagement with the players in the financial arena. And we do this in different ways. We reach out to the G20 presidencies, for instance. On sustainable finance, we have our unit actually is the secretary of the International Platform on Sustainable Finance, which is a platform where we discuss with other jurisdictions where they are and we exchange good practices. And this, again, is a way to shape a bit the direction of travel.
You mentioned financial stability. Again, this is where I put my theoretical, hard-hitting journalist hat on, which I'm not a journalist, nor am I hard-hitting. Would it be fair to say that the key priority or the biggest goal that we have in our international affairs in this area is financial stability?
Well, it is financial stability. It is also competitiveness. In that sense, that for to be competitive at the global level, of course, you need stable financial system. So this is a prerequisite for our industry to be competitive internally and globally. And also, our key objective is to develop a common standard global to ensure as much as possible a level playing field. So that's also linked to the competitiveness objective of our action.
We're recording this podcast just a couple of weeks, I think, after the new commission mandate, as we call it, or the new commission period has come in, where for the next 5 years, we've got new commissioners working on finance and obviously everything else that the EU does. So I'm interested in hearing what President von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, has basically given you or FISMA, what's the main task that has been given to you for these next 5 years, or the biggest project, let's say?
I think I will say one thing in the political guidelines of President von der Leyen, and is the clear direction that the EU should massively invest in sustainable competitiveness. So this is really a guiding principle for our action at the international level. And then these guidelines has been translated into the mission letter to our Commissioner Albuquerque, where there are many projects from the Saving and Investment Union to strengthening the banking union that go in this direction. And importantly, there is also this indication that we should continue leading internationally on sustainable finance.
So when you mention sustainable competitiveness, are we talking about sustainability only in the green sense, in the environmental sense, or is that a broader concept?
I think it's a broader concept. Is that
but it includes that,
it includes that, of course. And I think this means that we want to continue growing, but in a sustainable way.
Understood. Raffaella, thank you so much for coming in to chat with me today. I love international stuff, and I love talking about it with you. So thank you for enlightening me, and thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Okay, here's my take on this. The mission of the International Affairs Unit is to develop, coordinate, and implement the international strategy of the EU Commission across all its instruments to achieve the policy priorities of the Commission, particularly in relation to financial stability, sustainable, and digital finance. This includes coordination and support for multilateral cooperation in international fora, notably the G20 and the Financial Stability Board, the FSB, bilateral cooperation with third country jurisdictions, including the United States, the UK, China, Japan, Canada, Switzerland, and so on, and developments of equivalence policy, which is where the rules are recognized to be similar enough where we can play on the same field. It's also important for enlargement of the EU, very important for free trade agreements, for sanctions, etc. All of this is important because the EU is not an island. In fact, it's a very important part of the international financial world. Cooperating with our partners all over the world is an integral part of maintaining international financial stability and creating the conditions for international cooperation in all things financial. And that is a big deal. That's all for today. Do please like and subscribe, write a pleasant review, and let others know about the podcast. Until next time, bye!